Hello, good afternoon, or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to part 2 of the UK and Ireland region of the Inspiring Workplaces PeopleFirst Summit. It's a mouthful, isn't it? I'm April. I'm going to be your host for this section of the summit. I'm really excited to be here. I'm very grateful to be asked to take part. I'm going to be sharing some local perspectives with you, some stories, some ideas that hopefully will inspire us to create some people-first workplaces in 2026 and beyond. As you know, the summit is running across 24 hours, connecting us globally. It's such a great concept. But if you don't want to binge drink coffee for 24 hours, do not worry, because everything is being recorded that you can watch at your pleasure on demand at a time that suits you. But remember, this is a really collaborative opportunity, a great opportunity to connect and share ideas. So please put comments in the chat section, ask questions as we go. We've got a great lineup for you for this section. And before we kick off with those, I'm just going to share with you a presentation of my own and a little bit about the Cooper Parry journey. Okay, let's see if I can make the tech work. So Cooper Parry, don't feed the culture killers. What is it all about? Essentially, it is about protecting that magic that makes a business what it is, and for us, what makes Cooper Parry what it is during huge periods of growth and of change. And when companies go through change and grow fast, their culture is the thing that is most at risk of being damaged. So think of it a bit like an elastic band. It's getting stretched, the business is growing fast, and that elastic band can either flex and return to shape, or it can snap. And over the past few years, Cooper Parry has been on an incredible growth journey. We have grown phenomenally, both through acquisition and via organic growth. We have grown 10 times in the past 10 years. We actually set out a vision for ourselves 10 years ago, so back in 2015, and that vision was to grow the business tenfold, 10 times in 10 years, to go from 50 million turnover at the time to 150 million turnover. And the task that was set was to be the #1 accountancy firm to work for in the UK. But obviously with growth comes a huge amount of change, and with that change we ran the risk of diluting our culture and losing our culture, killing it off essentially. And at Cooper Parry, that was something that we absolutely fiercely wanted to protect. It was really important to us to maintain the culture that we were famous for. And when I joined Cooper Parry nearly 10 years ago, we had 250 employees. Today we're close to 2,000, just under 2,000 at the moment. We have that 150 million target that I mentioned that was the goal. We reached it and then some, 180 million we finished out last year. So absolutely staggering growth during that time. And that #1 firm to work for, that aim to be the best accountancy to work for, well, we have been awarded that accolade now consistently, being recognised for Cooper Parry, not just as a great place to work, but also for our well-being, for our communication, and not just in the accounting profession, but actually across many sectors across the whole UK and Ireland and globally. So we're really proud of that recognition, given the phenomenal growth that we've had. And I would say actually that our culture is stronger than it's ever been. It is more embedded than ever, despite that huge amount of growth. So I guess the question you may be wondering is, how have we done that? How have we managed to maintain the culture? And it's probably the biggest question that we get asked, whether we're hiring somebody at any level across the business, internally by our colleagues and peer group. How are you going to continue to maintain that culture as you grow? 250 people in a business, it's very easy to stay connected to everybody. It's very easy to communicate with everybody. 2,000 people now globally that we employ, it is a lot harder to maintain connectivity and to stay connected and to keep that culture alive. So we have done it through what we think is simple approach, and that is to not feed the culture killers. And what do I mean by culture killers? There's a number of things I'll share with you and talk through with you what I mean by that, but it's something we have absolutely very fiercely had to protect in order to maintain the culture and the magic that CP is known for. The first thing really that we had to do is we had to start with a really clearly articulated culture. So if we're going to protect the culture, what is it? How do we define it? What does it mean to be part of Cooper Parry? And so we created something called our cultural cornerstones. And this is essentially, these are the rules that we live by. This is the way that we play at Cooper Parry. And they're quite simple. You'll find there's a lot of things that are quite simple about Cooper Parry, whether it's 10 by 10 growth, or concentrating and focusing on the culture. The ethos is simple, but we wanted to set some real clear guidelines around what that meant so that we were able to censor check whether that was happening and to measure how effectively we were doing that and how people felt. So the cultural cornerstones that we put in place, I'll just kind of go through those and talk them through a little bit more. So the first one on their belonging. And this was about really every person having a voice at Cooper Parry. It doesn't matter what role you're in, what grade or level you're at, whether you've just joined the business, whether you've been here 20, 30, 40 years, your voice matters, and it's important that we give people the platforms to be able to feedback. So we're huge on feedback, have a number of different platforms, from weekly happiness surveys to 6 monthly surveys to annual surveys, really giving people the opportunity to tell us how they're feeling and making that a two-way dialogue. Through our CP Champs as well, which is our employee forum. So hearing from all areas of the business about what's working well, what isn't working well, and that the diversity within that group is a huge strength of ours. So although we'll talk a lot about shared vision and shared set of values, that's really, really important to maintaining that culture. However, we do want different personalities and different perspectives and fresh thinking, and to really bring that diversity into the business. So that's absolutely a critical cornerstone of our culture. Next up is around high performance. We often get probably unfairly assumed at Cooper Parry that because we've got quite a fun environment, we have a lot of flexibility, unlimited holiday, work from anywhere, anytime, that people assume that we don't work hard or that we just have fun all day or swing on the swing in our meeting room or however. The reality is actually we have very high expectations around performance, and everyone is measured against that performance. I'll come on to the fact that that isn't the only critical factor, but in order for our business to succeed and grow at the scale it has, we really have to set clear direction in terms of performance and have very high expectations of people. So if you join Cooper Parry, it's akin to joining what we say is a high performance sports team. Freedom and accountability, I guess it speaks for itself really, but it's really about giving people the autonomy to make decisions, to come up with ideas and fresh thinking. So we're pretty agile as a business, and entrepreneurial and experimental. So if somebody comes to us with an idea, we very rarely don't say no. We'll say, okay, tell us how it's going to work. Let us understand what resources needed or what support is needed, and largely allow them to crack on and experiment and play with that and help make it happen. And not every idea turns out the way that it was originally planned, but we learn so much along the way. That entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive. Then transparency and candor. This is an interesting one because it's really evolved over the years. I'll be honest, Cooper Parry was not always great at communicating with people, has always been on a pretty fast growth trajectory. Back in 2008, it feels like a long time ago now, Cooper Parry, like many businesses, was impacted pretty heavily by the recession and had been very used to kind of being on this unstoppable growth curve. And the recession hit pretty hard. It was a dark time in the Cooper Parry story. Fortunately, Cooper Parry were able to, again, be agile, act fast, make decisions, tough decisions at the time, which kept the business afloat. And ultimately, the business thrived beyond recession and has continued to do so. But like I said, back then, they didn't really communicate with people that well. So I didn't explain to people why they were having to make cuts or why they were having to take those tough decisions. So although the business was thriving, actually what happened was the goodwill of the people had just gone, and there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of mistrust, and it was a real pivotal turning point in the Cooper Parry journey in terms of culture. The word culture perhaps not really used back then, but a shift in understanding that actually in order to really succeed, you need to bring the people along with you, and the way to do that is to be transparent with them, explain why things are happening, communicate with people. So that's really been a huge part of the culture of Cooper Parry since 2008, and is one of our critical cultural cornerstones now. So we will always start with a position of why wouldn't we tell you, as opposed to why would we, and whether that is through acquisition, coming in, a legacy CPs, or those coming into the business throughout that process, we try to communicate as much as we can as early as we can. Really important cultural cornerstone of ours. Ownership. So this is really about everybody having the ability to lead. It links very much to that freedom and accountability cultural cornerstone, but everyone contributes, everyone has a part to play. So our culture isn't the responsibility of the people team. It isn't the responsibility just of the line manager. Everybody has a role to play in that, and everybody is held accountable to making sure that we all live by the cultural cornerstones and we all live by the values. Togetherness, again, so this is all about, and linked very much to one of our values of play all in, and the values in it together. I'll come on to those in a moment. But we don't succeed as one. We don't succeed as one individual, and we don't succeed as one team. So it is very much, we are Cooper Parry. So whether you work in our audit function or you work in our tax function, we share resource where it's needed. We don't land grab. We don't hold on to the best people in one team so that just in case we need them, but another team is really lacking in resource. So it's really about working together with each other and enjoying that journey along the way. And then trust, absolutely critical. And I know there's some great session coming shortly on psychological safety, but you can't have that trust without that psychological safety. So we really do trust people to make the right decisions for the business, whether that is from where they work, how they dress, unlimited holiday, trusting them to make the decisions of what is the right thing to do by the business. What, if I make this decision, is it going to have a negative or positive impact on my colleagues, on my clients, on Cooper Parry as a whole? And if you can answer the question that actually it's not going to detrimentally impact anyone else, then crack on, take that day off, work from Spain or wherever it may be. It's really empowering people to make the right decisions for the business, and we find that has a massive impact. So this is the culture that we set out, the cultural cornerstones that we gave clarity around, so that then we could measure as we grew whether or not we were staying true to that culture. And the second part that's been absolutely critical are our values. So the Cooper Parry values were crowdsourced, I guess it's first important to say. So they didn't come from me or the CEO or the exec team sat in a room saying, these are some nice words that will look good on the wall. We crowdsourced from within the business. So we spent a lot of time going out into the business and asking people, what is it about Cooper Parry and the people in it that makes it special? If you could clone certain people within the business because they really embody what Cooper Parry is about, who would that be and why? And through that process, through that kind of long iterative process, we came up with a number of people that were real role models. And then off the back of that, those kind of descriptive words, we came up with a stack of words that and sentences and phrases that described those individuals. And so we took that and put it into themes, and then went back to the business and said, this is what we think we're hearing. These are what we think are the values of Cooper Parry. What do you think? They came back with feedback. We played around with them. We went back again, did that process a couple of times, and ultimately landed on the values that you can see on the screen there. And they are what embody what it means to be living the Cooper Parry values. Every single person at Cooper Parry is measured against those values. Again, our senior team, our CEO gets measured against those values formally twice a year via upwards feedback. And if you're doing a great job and you're one of our top performers, high performance obviously being an important part of our cultural cornerstones, that's great. But if you are not living our values, then you're not right for Cooper Parry. And if we accept that and continue to feed those culture killers, those people that aren't right for us and aren't living our values, then we're going to damage our culture. We're going to kill the culture. So we take bold decisions. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what level you're at or where you've come from. If you're not playing by the rules and living the values, then you're not right for us, and we will have the difficult conversation. And some people will decide themselves that they're not right for us, and that's okay too. If we're going to protect our culture, which is the one thing that we're saying that we hold dear to ourselves, then we have to make those tough decisions. I've mentioned that we've had a lot of growth over the past few years, particularly in the last few more recent years since we took private equity investment. That growth has come organically, but we've also had a lot of growth through acquisition. And it's probably one of the hardest ways to maintain the culture, because you're bringing in outside influence, try to buy businesses that are as culturally aligned as possible, but we are very unique, and therefore it is tough to find the perfect match culturally every time. But we're not afraid to make those changes either, to protect our culture. So we have people coming into our business and they decide that Cooper Parry isn't right for them, or again, they're a great performer, but they're not living the values. They're not a nice person. They're not kind to other people. They're not brave. And by brave, we mean calling out bad behavior and willing to kind of think outside of the box. Then we'll have that conversation. We want people that are going to play all in, that feel part of one team and that feel in it together. So I've mentioned a large number of acquisitions, always a challenge, I know, and I'm sure there's lots of people on here that have been through that themselves. We integrate fast. It's a critical part of our strategy, part of our acquisition strategy. So we don't just change the name above the door. Pre-completion, we will communicate heavily. So we collaborate very closely with our incoming acquisitions and share with them our ethos around why wouldn't you tell them, as opposed to why would we tell them. And we bring the people on board as soon as possible. Some acquisitions are able to do that faster than others, that we understand that. But as soon as we're in a position to be able to share, we start communicating with their workforce. We start sharing what Cooper Parry is about, our story, our journey. We use an interactive online hub space that they can dip in and out of to ask questions, to access information. And again, like I said, we start with the why wouldn't we tell people. So that's both, again, our legacy CPers and incoming CPers will share with our existing teams. We've got an acquisition in the pipeline. This is what stage it's at, and keep them informed throughout the process. Within 12 months, usually sooner, to be honest, contracts are harmonised, values are embedded, and we have started measuring them against the same benchmark as legacy CPers. And we identify those that haven't been the right fit or aren't the right fit, and we have those honest conversations. We also change the work environment pretty quickly as well. And we find that that's a game changer for us. Our workspaces are quite unique, particularly within the accounting profession. And so by changing the workspace as quickly as we can, sometimes that is a refresh of existing space or move into a new space. But we find that the cultural shift there, in terms of being aligned to the Cooper Parry culture, the impact is phenomenal. And like I said, it isn't for everybody, and that's okay. And I think that's a really important thing, that it's okay if Cooper Parry isn't for you. We strongly believe that if you integrate too slowly, you will end up with these subcultures, which is one of the biggest culture killers. So that's our blueprint for protecting our culture. It will evolve, of course, as we grow, but the heart of it is what will remain strong. And if we continue to take that deliberate action against our cultural cornerstones, then we know that we will preserve our culture. So what's next for Cooper Parry? So we've just shared our new 3-year vision. So we now have 3-year vision that we share with everybody. It's accessible to all of our CPers, but also online. So we're not afraid to share that externally. We're very open again about what our 3-year vision plan is. It's extremely ambitious. The next stage of our journey sees more growth and more acquisition. So in 3 years, we're looking to be at 600 million turnover, 150 million EBITDA, and have 4,000 CPers. So it's going to be a busy few years for sure. But yeah, how do we continue to protect the magic of CP? Go back again to when I first joined, 250 people, and now nearly 2,000 with a plan to get to 4,000. It's no easy task. But everything I've said, really, culture first. We believe wholeheartedly that people and culture has to come first. And if you look after our people and we fiercely protect the culture, then our people will be happy, they will be engaged, they will stick around, they'll tell their friends about us, so we'll get great referrals. In turn, they will then give our customers an amazing experience. And they will be happy, and they will be engaged, and they will stick around and give us more business, and ultimately tell their friends too. So it's a very simple equation from our perspective. Culture first, look after the people, they will look after the clients. That will equal business success. And don't feed the culture killers. That's ultimately our aim. So just urge you to have a little think about the cultures in your own business. What is it that you're trying to preserve? Is it the culture that you want? And if culture is something that we walk past, what is it that we're walking past today that might cost us tomorrow? So I'll leave you with that thought. That is all from me and my presentation.